But as soon as she's got a mic, as soon as the name is so
Well, I can prepare it.
good.
Already?
Good morning, not good morning, good afternoon. My morning started very early. I had first graders first thing, so it's been a longer day, but I'm really happy to be here at Holland Home. My name's Katelyn Kickstra. I am a waste reduction educator. Yes, is this not loud enough?
You know, your podium is blocking part of the screen. Is there any
Oh.
way you could?
I think that we can move that. Certainly. Hold on one moment, please. Is that better from where you all are sitting?
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, the presentation is for you guys, so if you can't see it, let me know. Like I was saying, my name is Katelyn Kickstra. I'm a waste reduction educator with Kent County Department of Public Works. That department with the county specializes in all things waste. So it could be your straight up trash and garbage waste. It could be your special collections for recycling type waste like electronics or household hazardous waste. And of course, probably the facility that you all are very familiar with is our Kent County Recycling and Education Center. I know that folks from this home came out to visit the recycling center. I'm curious if anyone here was part of that group that came out to tour the recycling center. All right.
Yeah, I did it 5 or 6 years ago.
5 or 6 years
A
ago.
year ago.
A year ago. And then I know that we had a group maybe a couple months ago come out as well. So I just wanted to make sure I knew my audience and how much of a broken record I could sound like for you all. So today I want to talk a lot about recycling, but first we have to start off with something in mind. So this right here, this pyramid that you see, is a waste hierarchy. We borrowed this one from WEMIAC, or West Michigan Environmental Action Council. There is also a similar pyramid of waste hierarchy that is on the Environmental Protection Agency's website. The reason why I wanted to talk about this, this is the entire framework for how our department operates. When we have something that comes in that someone has deemed as waste or something that is no longer wanted.
Need the loop on.
It is on.
Okay. Are we good?
Yes.
All right. When someone brings something to one of our facilities, we ultimately have to decide how are we going to handle this waste. And when something comes in, there's a lot of options that you can do with it. Of course, you can landfill pretty much anything, but is that the best possible placement or use for that material? Is there a better option for it, like recycling it or composting it? Or is this still a good material that could be reused or repurposed in a way? So when we look at this pyramid, you'll see at the very bottom, that's the worst option for the planet when we look at how it affects the environment and the impact it has on our natural resources. Do we need to do anything different? Okay. So at the very bottom, that option is landfilling our trash. A step up above that is energy recovery. Does anyone have a guess as to what that might mean? You okay? Are you okay?
Yes.
All right.
Free entertainment.
Yeah, speaking of recovery. Does anyone know what we mean when we say energy recovery when that comes to trash? No such thing as a wrong guess.
Batteries?
Batteries.
No.
That's a good guess. Not the right answer. Yes.
Is it like burning and then using that energy for something else?
It is. So it's incinerating trash under a controlled environment so that at least you're recovering the energy or the electricity that it took to develop that product to begin with, right? Because when you're creating that product, you're putting a lot of different resources, not just the natural resources that go into making the product material, but also all of that energy for melting something down, casting it into a new product, transporting it to maybe a place where it gets packaged or boxed up, then transporting it again to the store or to your curbside. So there's a lot of energy and power that goes into making all of our goods. So the least that we can do, if we're going to throw it away, incinerating it so that that energy is recovered when we burn that trash. And more on that a little bit later. As we go up the waste hierarchy, you can see that recycling and compost tie for both being equally good for the environment. With recycling and composting, you're breaking that material down so it can become something new. It's a little bit different than reusing in that way because you're still taking energy to do that, but at least you're recovering the material or the natural resource that went into making that product to begin with. And clearly you can't recycle your food, but you can compost it, right? That's how they're similar. On our way up, we can see that reusing something over and over again without having to break it down is third best. And of course, up at the top, refusing to even make waste or generate waste, or at least reducing it, is second best. Does this look familiar to anybody, that reduce, reuse, recycle? You probably have all heard that before. How many of you have never heard that? That's completely new knowledge. All right, good. That helps me kind of figure out where you guys are starting. So let's talk about Kent County. Let's bring it hyper-local to what's happening here. So when I say the Department of Public Works handles all of our waste, what I mean is that we have to have multiple approaches to manage all of the things that folks are throwing away. We have a few facilities that help us do that. We have our Recycling and Education Center where recycling goes. We have our waste to energy facility where we do energy recovery, so controlled burning of that trash. And then we have the South Kent Landfill and the North Kent Transfer Station to move trash from the northern part of the county to the southern part of the county, or directly receive trash at the landfill. We do not currently have a compost option that we manage at the county level. Note that I said currently. It's something that we're working on, and I can talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. Any questions so far? All right. The reason why I wanted to show you the different waste streams and kind of where they're heading to for our facilities is because we're still counting on each resident doing their part. The action that you can take at your waste bin is determining if that trash or that waste item that you no longer want really has to go to the landfill, or can you sort it away from the landfill by making sure recyclables like newspaper make it into the recycling bin, and making sure that compostables like your leftover food scraps make it to the compost bin, and that truly the trash items like your wrappers go to the landfill or the trash bin.
I have a real hard time too.
Because we have a really big goal. Our goal is to reduce trash heading to the landfill by 90% by 2030, which, let's be honest, that's coming sooner rather than later. A lot of times what we see heading to the landfill is commingled together. So we see a lot of recyclables that should have gone to the recycling center, but they were put in the trash bin. We see a lot of compost items that went to the landfill that should have gone into the compost pile or to your compost bin for that commercial composter to deal with. So it's really important that we're all doing our job of sorting our trash away from the landfill if possible, by making sure recyclables make it into the recycling bin, compost makes it into the compost bin. So part of that integrated solid waste management plan or sustainable materials management, where we have a variety of facilities that are trying to take care of all these different types of waste types or streams, there's a lot to cover in Kent County. So I'm sure you all are familiar with Kent County being the rectangular county that we see right in the middle. The burgundy color, little dots up here, are all representing landfills. So you can see exactly how many landfills there are, not just in Kent County, but around us. And these only represent open landfills, meaning landfills that are still accepting trash. We know that there's at least 4 closed landfills in Kent County. The only open one right now is the South Kent landfill, but there is a closed landfill in Kentwood, in Rockford, in Sparta, and then if you went to the recycling center, there's the old Butterworth dump, which is a super fun site that the city of Grand Rapids monitors. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay. So up here you can see a couple of our other facilities. So the North Kent Transfer Station, which is transferring recyclables down to the recycling center, or trash down to the South Kent landfill. This is our waste to energy facility. It's right across the river from the recycling center, located on Market. But that only serves a designated boundary of cities here in Kent County. All right, we are moving on. We're gonna work our way up the waste hierarchy through our facilities. So like I said, we own and manage the South Kent landfill. Here's a beautiful picture of the South Kent landfill. What do you mean? I think it's pretty gobstopping and pretty stunning. So who here's been to the landfill before? You mean you don't just visit the landfill on a casual Tuesday? No? No one's been to the landfill. I'm surprised. Usually there's at least one person that's been to the landfill. So the landfill, like I said, is down near the bottom of Kent County, near the Allegan County border, down by 100th Street, if you're familiar with the area. There's a designated 250 acres of space dedicated to the landfill. It opened in the mid-'80s. And this is where all of our trash, unless you live in the 6 metro cities, this is where all of your trash is going to be buried. And I think that there's a common misconception about what happens at the landfill. Things really aren't breaking down because the whole point of a landfill is to capture that trash so it doesn't go out and litter the environment, right? We don't want it blowing in our air. We don't want it going onto our lawns or into our waterways. The whole point is to keep that trash contained. And that also means any of the emissions or gases that come from the material breaking down. So there's a plastic liner that's on the bottom of these landfills, as well as when that landfill is full, there's a landfill cap or a plastic cap that prevents those emissions from leaking out into the air. So everything is just kind of like a tomb of trash, sitting there for a really long time. We have to monitor it for at least 50 years to make sure that things are settling okay. But really, those are a lot of buried resources when we think about it. We do waste studies on our landfill every 5 years, and year after year, the estimates come back that about $1 million worth of returnable cans are buried at the landfill. So if you and I want to become millionaires, you know where we're going after this, right? But think about all of the other resources as well. There's food scraps that could have become nutritious soil, right, to grow new fruits and vegetables. Or there's paper that could have become new office paper, right? So there's a lot of things that we're throwing away that do not have to end up there. And unfortunately, the amount of trash that we generate each year is growing. Americans are up to about 4.5 pounds of trash every day that they're producing. So we have to figure out ways of refusing, reducing, and reusing before everything goes to the landfill. But I do have a question for you. How much trash do you think we throw away each year? If you were to guess, just for our county, I'll make it easy, just for our county. No wrong guesses. So you said something tons back there. What was that?
100,000.
100,000 tons. That's a solid guess. And we throw more than that in the landfill. Any other guesses? Come on. Don't be afraid to say the number.
1 million.
1 million tons. You want to know what? We're getting close. So we put over 600,000 tons of trash in the landfill each year. And that's really hard for my brain to visualize, right? I can't picture 600,000 tons, even though I visit the landfill almost every day, right? So I came up with some visualizations. Imagine the big house, the U of M big house, filled with trash. We can fill that big house twice with the trash just our county makes every year. Yeah. Gross. Let's bring it even closer to home. The Van Andel Arena. I assume that most of us have been to the Van Andel Arena, seen a concert there, maybe a hockey game. I tell my first graders maybe you saw Disney on Ice there or the monster truck rally. So imagine that place filled with trash 9 times that we make. It's a lot of trash. But the good thing, the silver lining, this is as doomsday as we're going to get during this presentation. The silver lining to how much trash we put in the landfill is that we don't have to. 30 to 35% of that trash going to the landfill, remember we do waste studies so we know what's being thrown away, 30 to 35% could have been recycled at the recycling center. Another 30 to 35% could have been composted. So if we just do those 2 actions alone, recycle as much as we can of the right things, right? No wish cycling or putting the wrong things in there. And if we compost as much as we can, 2/3 of that landfill wouldn't exist. And we won't have to build another landfill. That's pretty amazing, right? That we all have the ability to change that, right, for our future. All right, I'm going to keep on talking trash, but we're going to talk about the waste to energy facility. Because remember, that's one step better than landfilling. Has anyone been to the waste to energy facility? All right, you have. When was that?
Well, about 20 years ago.
About 20 years ago, great.
Yeah, me too.
So the waste to energy facility was made in 1989. This is when the 6 cities of Kent County came together. So Grand Rapids, East Grand Rapids, Walker, Wyoming, Granville, and Kentwood came together to build, or I should say bond, this construction of this building. And that was because there was a lot of waste that was being produced by the urban core. So all of their trash is mandated to come to this building unless it has an exemption. An exemption would be like, we do not incinerate medical waste. So hospital trash is not coming to the waste to energy facility. But the unfortunate news is that we're over capacity already at the waste to energy facility, meaning that people are making a lot more trash than what we even thought our population would grow to or even make per a person. But also there's a lot of things that I see at the waste to energy facility that should have gone to the recycling center instead. So the great news about this facility is that it's reducing the volume of trash by 90%. So if you were to hold up that standard black trash bag that you fill with garbage, you could hold the ashes in the palm of your hand. So that helps save space on the landfill. In fact, it's probably increased the longevity of the landfill by about 7 to 10 years. So we would have been closed a while ago at the landfill had it not been for the waste to energy facility. On the back side of the waste to energy facility is a magnet that is collecting all of our ferrous metals. So those are metals that contain iron that people have put in the trash. They haven't recycled it. They haven't taken it back to a scrap metal recycler. They haven't even put it out at their curb for a scrap metal recycler to pick it up. And in fact, we've collected so much steel that people have put in their garbage. We have collected enough steel to make 2 Mackinac bridges during that time.
Wow.
Imagine how much steel is buried at the landfill, right? And everybody else's trash. That is also the equivalent, if we have anyone that's was in the Navy, the equivalent of 2 aircraft carriers as well. A perk of this facility, remember it's not the goal, the perk of this facility is that when we are incinerating that trash, it is generating steam that turns a turbine that generates electricity. And we generate around 11,000 homes worth of electricity, about the size of Walker. I think Walker's growing a little bit, so maybe a little bit less than Walker now. But it also provides stability to the electric grid because we all know that the nearest power plant is out at Lake Michigan, right? And that's a long way to send electricity from Lake Michigan. The inert ash that comes from this process goes to a separate section at the landfill, so there's no emissions coming off of it at all. So that's another good thing about having to care for this section at the landfill is that you're not having to monitor for emissions or collect methane gas or anything like that. Any questions so far about these 2 facilities? Yes?
What are some examples of what is appropriate to incinerate?
So I think that will become clear after we talk about the recycling center. And so then you'll know what to put in the recycling bin. And then we can kind of talk about, well, what's going to be left over from what you are throwing away. So can you remind me of that question after we get through that? I just want to make sure that I'm not sitting up here talking about cartons and milk jugs repeatedly. That's a great question though. Any other questions before we move on?
Where is this?
So this is located on Market Avenue. So Wealthy and Market is kind of like the nearest cross streets. Right next door to the wastewater treatment facility that the city of Grand Rapids operates.
Where does the medical waste go?
So the medical waste is contracted out by that hospital or medical group like Spectrum. They have their own vendor for that. I think sometimes they even have their own incinerators that handle that waste. But I don't think they're in-house anymore. I think that they ship them out to another facility. You have to have a special permit in order to incinerate medical waste. It has to be a different grade or flavor, we'll say, of facility that handles that. They have to have unique scrubbers in there to look for the particular emissions that would come from burning medical waste as opposed to residential waste. Because they might not appear so to you guys, but they're going to be completely different types of trash where you're going to be looking for some things that you don't really want to go out into the air versus other places where you kind of know what to expect, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Good question. Any others? All right, we're going to move on to the point where I think a lot of people have been waiting for, the recycling center, because I hear that we have some recycling here at Holland Home. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
So what does that look like to me? Can anyone describe that to me? Is it just paper? Is it everything mixed together? Do you have a whole bunch of different bins for a whole bunch of different materials?
No, it was
Mixed together.
It all goes together.
on our street for
So do you have those City of Grand Rapids carts with the blue and the yellow tops? All right. Then I'm talking to my kind of people because that recycling comes to us. I just know because I also live in the City of Grand Rapids, and City of Grand Rapids delivers recycling to the Kent County Recycling Center. Each hauler brings it to a place of their choice based on their routes. So I think that's where the start of, well, I don't know what to recycle begins, because each hauler takes it to different places based on their routes and how they're collecting it. Because this facility is really just for sorting recyclables out from one another, right? You're getting all of your milk jugs separated from all your metal cans, separated from all your glass. But if you have multiple bins for each type of material, it doesn't have to be sorted. So it goes to a different facility. All right, and you said that none of you have been to the recycling center, correct?
Oh, we've been there.
You've been there. You've been there? Show of hands if you've been to the recycling center at some point. Woohoo! Way back when, that's okay, we'll take it. So this recycling center, we had an earlier version. This particular recycling center was built in 2010. So if your visit was prior to that date, you were seeing our old recycling center. This one's located on Wealthy Street, right around the corner from the old Coca-Cola factory and John Ball Zoo. So at this facility, we are processing mixed recycling or single stream recycling, where all of your recyclables come in all together, jumbled in one bin. And the reason for that is usually there's higher participation when people have the convenience of one bin. And then we have the ability through both machines and hand sorting to separate the recyclables out into different categories. So when we receive recyclables, they look a lot like this. This might look like trash to you, but this to me looks like clean recycling. Does it look like trash to you?
No.
No. All right. All right. We'll make waste reduction educators out of you yet. And it can look a lot like this.
No.
But unfortunately, sometimes there's things in there that do not belong. Yeah, what are you seeing in this picture that does not belong?
Plastic bags.
The plastic bags and overwrap, very good.
I can't see.
Pet food bag,
Yeah. Was
dirty paper plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our job is to not only get things separated by category, but remove the non-recyclables as well. So this is what you can recycle if your recycling comes to Kent County, which yours does. We will take cardboard and paper. We will take, which includes, do you want me to, I'm not sure in the back if you can see the pictures very well. So that cardboard and paper category includes newspapers, magazines, junk mail, that paper pulp or cardboard egg cartons, any of your paperboard or cardboard cereal or snack boxes, cracker boxes, your flattened cardboard boxes, your paper cups, your paper bags, your paper toilet paper tubes and paper towel tubes.
How about books?
She says, what about books? We can do paperback books, but we will not do hardcover books because the hardcovers are usually made out of more than just paper, right? Their hardcover could be fabric, clay sometimes, plastic. So no to the hardcovers, yes to the paperback. Yes.
A paper cup would probably have a bit of
Plastic.
Wax.
wax in it,
Mhm.
or maybe a little bit of liquid left in the bottom. Is that okay?
So you, really by the time that it gets to us, it's not gonna have a whole lot of liquid left, if any. But you're right that recyclables should be empty and clean. That paper cup, yes, it's holding liquid, but like you mentioned, there is a waxy, plasticky layer, so that that liquid isn't penetrating the paper, right? There's that protective barrier. Because if it was penetrating the paper, you would be holding some soggy cups, folks. You would have a really soggy cup that you were drinking out of. So not every place that takes paper can take paper cups. We just so happen to sell our paper to a paper mill that has technology that is able to handle and recycle paper cups. Yes,
And it looks like in the picture a pizza box,
a pizza box.
but wouldn't pizza boxes have a little grease?
Let's
in
talk
them?
about it. Yeah, so pizza boxes, many pizzerias now have liners or inserts in them that you can toss that away rather than the whole pizza box. Additionally, even if your pizza box is very greasy, like you had a horrible accident on the way home with transporting your pizza, it flipped from your front seat down to the floor, and you've got cheese everywhere. Usually, the top of that pizza box is pretty clean, right? So you can at least recycle that part. If you decide that the bottom is too greasy, a good way to determine if your pizza box is too dirty to be recycled, if you have a saturated grease stain, meaning you can see it from inside the box all the way to the other side of the box, that's bigger than the palm of your hand, that's too dirty to be recycled.
Yeah.
You had a question?
Yeah, I always take the tops off the milk bottles and everything. So you've got the tops, you leave the tops go with the bottle?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. Let me finish up the paper
Okay.
one. One thing that we don't want in the paper, in your recycling bin, I should say, that falls under the paper category is shredded paper.
Yeah.
Shredded paper will fall between the gaps of a lot of our recycling machines. So even if you put it in there, your efforts of recycling it or trying to get it recycled really aren't going to be honored, and we wanted to be transparent about that because it's going to fall in our glass and there's no way to recover it from our glass on our end. Yes?
We're talking about recycled paper, but what if you put it in a bag?
Even if it's in a bag, we don't want it.
No,
Oh.
no.
We tried that for a really long time and people just don't.
What was the question?
So
I'm sorry, let me repeat the question. So she said, well, what about putting your shredded paper in a paper bag? I thought that was allowed.
I meant plastic bag. But
Oh, no, we don't want that.
Okay.
Yep, so, we don't want any bag or bundled recycling, just because that really messes with the sorting process. Additionally, we did try for a while, about 2 years, we encouraged folks to put all of their plastic bags in one plastic bag, right? So we could pull them off the line. Same with shredded paper, we tried to put shredded paper in one bag and then we would pull it off the line. And the majority of people, 90% of folks, would not do that. So we're just like, well, if folks are going to abuse the system, unfortunately, it ruins it for the few folks that are doing a good job. So, but shredded paper can go to a paper gator. So, and that's usually, you can get one here, you can get one at schools, because they're often fundraisers, libraries, churches, places of worship will have them. You've had your hand up for a while, sir.
Liners for cereal boxes.
Yeah. So what do you think? Yes or no? I want to know your recycling habits.
What did he say?
What's the question?
His question was liners for cereal boxes. What do we think? The
Not
plastic
they're
ones.
waxed
She says, no, it's their plastic bags. What do you say?
or
That's
waxed.
what they are.
That's what they are. Okay, we're not gonna get whether or not he puts them in the recycling bin or not. He won't admit it before the group. All right, thank you for asking. That's a great question. Yep, we want to make sure that it's empty, so no cereal bags or cracker bags or anything like that inside your paperboard boxes.
What happens to the recyclables that are put in plastic bags?
They look like trash, so they're going to be pulled aside by our loader, and they're going to be placed in the trash. The reason for that is we've had so many instances of trash coming through the line, things like dirty diapers and kitchen trash that if we run it through the conveyor belt, that's gonna gunkify everything, as I'm sure you can imagine, which means it's gonna gunkify all of your clean recyclables. So do not bag your recyclables because they will look like trash, right? We want recyclables to be clean, empty, not bagged or bundled, okay?
Exactly.
All right, we're gonna move on to plastics because you brought up a good question. So plastics are always the thing that folks get tripped up on, and I understand why. There are a lot of different types of plastics. So right over here, so we can take plastic bottles, cups, jugs, tubs, and containers that are number 1 through 7. You don't really have to worry about the number 1 through 7 resin types. I'm just letting you know. We can take number 1 through 7 resins for plastics. We do not want any of your foam plastic.
No.
So what that means is styrofoam, packing peanuts, your foam takeout containers. There's this like new thing out that has they're like foam sheets if you have something really fragile that you have being shipped to you. And then we also don't want your flexible plastics, like your bags or your bubble wrap or your air pillows or your Amazon shipping envelopes
Right.
or cereal liner bags back there.
Now, back to plastic bags. What about the Meyer bags that say number 2 or number 4?
So even if your foam plastic or even if your flexible film plastic says number 1 or number 2 or number 4, we don't want that.
No.
The number doesn't determine recyclability, only the form that plastic takes also determines recyclability. And the form that we can process and accept are hard, rigid plastic bottles, cups, tubs, and containers. You can, however, take your bags and your flexible plastics back to Meyer, or there's other plastic bag drop-offs. The reason why that works, that's all they're collecting. No sorting has to be done, right? They're only collecting plastic bags. And that's where they belong because they're still clean. And Meyer is actually recycling them. I know a lot of people have doubts about whether Meyer is recycling them. We're not the only outlet for recycling. There's a lot of private recyclers that do a really good job too. And they've actually been experimenting with how to use those plastic bags. A lot of those plastic bags get used as composite lumber or decking. But they actually did a pilot out in Holland about resurfacing and repaving their parking lot at their Meyer store with plastic bags, which I think is really cool. So I want to touch on your question because you've been waiting very patiently. Our rule for caps and lids. You
Yeah.
ready with your pens and pencils?
Yeah.
The rule for caps and lids, it's super easy. If the cap or the lid is the same general material as the container, meaning you've got a plastic milk jug with a plastic cap, keep them together.
Okay.
If they are different, like you have a glass jar with a metal lid, you want to separate them from each other because they need to go to 2 different places at the recycling center through our machines, but put them both in the recycling bin.
Oh, okay.
Now the sneaky one, right? We've got I'm sorry,
With
can you see it?
Where?
The cartons right here, right? Your juice
Oh, okay.
cartons, like your dairy milk that comes in this paperboard container with a plastic lid, or your plant-based milks, juice boxes maybe for your grandkids, broth and soup containers. Those have a paperboard outside, but they're sneaky. The reason why we say keep caps on is that they have a plastic layer inside
Oh.
that keeps them from getting saturated, right? And squishy. So that's why we say keep the plastic lids on those.
Oh, okay.
Pretty easy to remember that lid rule? Yes. Yes.
It looks like there's maybe a detergent bottle, the
Mhm.
blue with the yellow top.
Yes.
I was always told that you could never get all of the detergent out, so you couldn't recycle.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm going to repeat it so everyone can hear. So she said, that looks like a detergent bottle. And I was told detergent bottles are a no-go for your recycling bin because you can't ever get them clean enough. I'm here to bust that myth.
Okay.
So how clean recycling needs to be, obviously the cleaner the better, right? The whole point of recycling is to make new things from our old things. And you and I wouldn't buy toilet paper from recycled paper if we saw half a pizza crust in there, right? So making sure things are clean as much as we can get them without wasting other precious resources like water. There's a nice balance that you can strike there. I like to get the mileage out of my detergent, so I'm rinsing and pouring into my washing machine. That's a really good strategy. But usually 3 rinses with some vigorous shaking, as much as you can do, is good enough to get that clean. Other containers are less rinsing required, but all recyclables should be clean enough
Yes.
that if you put them in the corner and you came back to them a couple weeks later, you wouldn't be having an ick moment, right? Because even though there's a lot of machines doing the sorting, there are still a lot of human workers that have to touch this. And neither you or I want to expose anybody to any kind of bacteria or mold or anything like that, right? So just making sure that things are clean. They don't have to be dishwasher clean, but the cleanest that you can get them. You don't have to waste a lot of water. You can even wipe some things out, like your yogurts or your peanut butters that are hard to clean out, with a napkin. Then you can compost the napkin, right? So it's a good way of making sure you're not wasting additional resources. Yes?
I think I see the answer there, but I want to be sure.
Sure.
I get a lot of greens in these plastic clamshells or other fruits and so on.
Mhm.
And those are all recyclable?
They
I
are.
throw them all in.
Yep.
And
What's the
squishy
comment?
plastic bottles that,
Yeah, so, excuse me. She said that her question was, I think I see the answer, but up here is a picture of a plastic clamshell container that her salad greens and things and fruits and vegetables come in. I know that there's been a couple national media stories about what is and what's not recyclable and how only so much gets recycled. But the thing to remember about recycling, while those stories can speak really great to national trends or global trends, they can't speak to what's happening here locally and actually following the recycling trail to the actual recycling center where this happens. So we happen to have a downstream processor that does accept those things. A lot of the places that they're talking about don't have that downstream processor for those things where they're able to take the clear plastics and actually make something new from them. So what's the sense in collecting something, right? If you don't have an outlet for it. We're the Midwest Rust Belt for a reason, right? We have a lot of manufacturing hubs here that are able to handle that. All right, let's move on to our last 2 materials.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I always smash my milk jug, the plastic, but the lid won't fit on
It does. You
after you smash it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Don't put it in there.
don't put the lid in.
So she says, I smashed my milk jug, but I can't put the lid back on. So what should I do with the lid? It's fine to smash your milk jug if it really saves you that much space. We would love to recover that lid, but you can't put it in there separately because just like the shredded paper, it's going to be just small enough that it's going to fall between the glass breaking disc. So if possible, if you can keep them together, that would be awesome. If not, you're going to have to make a super cool bottle cap necklace or something to repurpose.
Don't smash it as hard.
You can make a tic-tac-toe. I have a couple games with some bottle caps at the recycling center, some tic-tac-toe, bananagrams, Scrabble. That's a good one. You can make a recycled Scrabble from bottle caps. All right, let's get to the last 2 ones because we have a lot of presentation to still cover, even though these are really good questions. Metal cans and foil. So if you have clean aluminum foil, foil trays, empty aerosol cans. We don't want ones that still have stuff in there. Spray it out as much as you can. Get it? Can. Labels are okay if you want to leave those on. If you want to separate the paper label and put the paper label in separately, now that paper is also getting recovered and recycled, right? Versus before it's just burning off during the smelting process. Glass bottles, we can take all colors, all shapes and sizes, as long as they are food and beverage grade glass. So we don't want your Pyrex containers in there. We don't want your windows in there. We don't want your mirrors in there. So, all right. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff you can put in there, but back to your question, what can't you put in there? We get a lot of household hazardous waste in there, so chemicals, propane tanks, batteries. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That groan is everything you need to know. Don't put hazardous materials in there because we have a lot of folks that are sorting things by hand. They could really get hurt by leaving those things in there. It could also break one of our machines so that we are not able to sort recycling for weeks. So we want to make sure that those things do not end up in there, and I can get you the right resource of where to actually take those things. We kind of covered this earlier. No bagged or bundled recycling, no foam plastics, and nothing that would tangle. So a good rule of thumb to judge whether or not it would tangle, if it's long, flexible, skinny, it's gonna tangle. So anything like your plastic bags, your Christmas tree lights, your extension cords, hangers, metal hangers, tarps, clothing, hoses. We wanna make sure that what we're putting in the recycling bin is an accepted material, right? But also, is it an acceptable size? So just like we talked about with the milk jug cap, even though it's a plastic or hard plastic, number 1 through 7, by itself, it's not acceptable because it's gonna fall between the gaps of the machine. Same with shredded paper. We'll take paper all day, but that shredded paper is not gonna make it to where it needs to go. Same goes with if it's too big, right? Can't take a refrigerator box, but if you cut it down, we sure can. Is it an acceptable shape or form? Remember those foam plastics? Even though they're plastics, it's not the right form of plastic that we can take.
Question.
Yes?
So like a plastic clothes hanger, that's the wrong shape? Okay.
And the reason for that, look at that hook, right? It's gonna snag some other recyclables and prevent them from getting to where they need to be. But now you were bringing that up all on your own, so now you kind of know. You had a hunch that, maybe this is not an acceptable material. So she said, plastic hangers, what about those? But the hook would get us in trouble, right? Any other questions? Yes, way back there.
Could I collect my bottle caps into another container and
Oh.
seal it?
Okay, her question was, can I collect my bottle caps and put it into another container? While I appreciate your creativity, that's what we call turducken your recycle. And it's not something we want to have happen. The reason for that, we'll see it here in a little bit. Some of these things are sorted out by machines. They're not like grabbing those items, right? They're blowing them over to other conveyor belts or attracting them with a magnet. When things become too heavy, like our clear bottles or our laundry detergent containers, they're going to be too heavy to blow over to that other conveyor belt. So you're going to prevent something from getting sorted. So it's best that those bottle caps stay on their containers. Yep, great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Well, I thank you for coming because I live in the States too, so I'm speaking for us.
Okay.
But we find things in that recycle bin all the time that do not belong there.
Mhm.
Like a Christmas tin full of cookies. And I could go on.
Well, they
and
were
on.
coming to me. Why did you remove those?
But anyway, we need this teaching.
Oh, good. I'm glad that my visit here is well worth it because I'm just trying to make sure that we're all doing a correct job. I don't think that anyone's trying to put the wrong thing in necessarily, but until you know better, you can't do better, right? So I want to show you a couple quick views of how our machines work so that you have a better understanding of how they're operating, why our rules aren't just for the sake of rules, but because this is the environment that we have to operate in, right? So right in front of me, I have a picture of one of our paper discs. So this is the machine that's responsible for sorting out the paper. I also have at the bottom of the screen are 2 rows of metal discs that break and crumble the glass that falls on it. And that glass falls between the gaps of this machine. And it goes out on a separate conveyor belt over here that is just off camera, but you might be able to see it here once I hit play. These paper discs are kind of rubbery and they're on an incline. And how this works is the flat, wide, lightweight surface area of paper rests on top and then gets pushed off onto this conveyor belt or on the second conveyor belt for the second paper disc. Everything else is falling between the gaps of those discs and continuing on the conveyor belt until it hits the right sorting machine. Oh, here we go. So there they are spinning. Oh, but look, couple of tanglers if I ever saw them. Some plastic bags right there. There's actually a few tanglers right here. That's what we call things that are going to wrap around the machine.
Oh dear.
So this one down here looks green, so my guess is probably a phone cable of some sort. So we're not seeing any recyclables go on there yet, but the next slide, if I can find my mouse again. Aha.
Wow.
So there's the paper going over the paper disc machines. Remember, everything that's not lightweight or flat, like paper, is going to fall between those discs onto the conveyor belt and continue onward. You also have to think about other things that are going to be lightweight and flat. That's why we can't take plastic bags. Lightweight, flat, they're going to act and look a lot like paper coming through. All right, my favorite machine, the magnet. Keep your eye on this big metal can right here to see what happens. Magic. Not quite, science, but so this magnet only collects ferrous metals, not your non-ferrous metals like your aluminum. Your aluminum is all hand sorted out at the end. So this kind of goes back to your question of whether or not you can stuff your recycling. So this machine over here, it's off camera, but it's a very bright computer. It has an extremely bright light that's scanning every single recyclable that goes by, and it's measuring the refraction time, or the amount of time that it takes for that light to bounce off of a material and bounce back to the computer. Each material, if it's a see-through plastic or opaque plastic or a paperboard carton, is going to have a different amount of time that that light travels. This one is programmed for clear plastics, so you'll note that it's blowing over all of our clear plastics.
It's amazing.
And you see, we do have someone, if you watch this area, they're tossing back some of the materials that got mis-sorted by that computer. So human workers do awesome quality control when it comes to recycling, but they can't keep up with machines doing a lot of recycling or volumes of recycling at one time. All right. This is another view. So this is our other optical scanner. So this is the same machine that was doing that other job, but this one is further down the conveyor belt, and it's looking for our carton friends. So the plant-based milks, the dairy milks that come in those paperboard outsides, and they're blowing them over to another conveyor belt, just like the last optical scanner. And then, once we have it all sorted, we have a couple different, we call them bunkers. I like storage cages better, just because not everyone knows what a bunker is. So this big blue box over here is our paper bunker. We have a lot of paper. It makes up about 65% of what we get at the recycling center, and we're constantly baling it. So we have to have a big storage bunker for our paper. And then, I just want to make sure I'm not bumping into anything. This is the back of the magnet over here. So you'll see steel cans, our laundry detergent jugs, milk jugs, and aluminum cans are over on the other side. Our cartons are being collected up here. And then all of our, this is where they're also hand sorting some of those laundry detergent bottles and milk jugs. Whoops, I did it. I knew I was gonna do it.
What's happening after that comes off the conveyor? Is that remade into other articles or what?
So you're asking what happens to the recyclables after we've sorted them and baled them?
Yeah.
So after we have them sorted, they go to this machine, which is a baler. So this is in charge of squishing the recyclables into a 1-ton cube that we load into the back of a semi. This is where, depending on the material, it might go to a paper mill if it's paper, or cardboard. It will go to an aluminum smelter. If it's aluminum, if it's a steel, it will go to a steel smelter, glass smelter. All of the plastics will go to different polymer factories based on what type of plastic it is. They're doing the cleaning, shredding, pelletizing, melting, breaking it down even further, and they're making it into raw feedstock for manufacturers to use.
But you
So-
sell it, right?
What we sell it. Yep, so something to know about the Department of Public Works, even though we're part of the county, we are not taxpayer funded, we are an enterprise fund, meaning whatever we make on selling these commodities or bales, and then the tipping fee that the hauler pays when they get weighed on the scales is how we make our money and keep things going so you still have recycling. So here's the baler in action. What are they baling? Milk jugs, very good.
What is it?
Milk plastic?
Plastic milk jugs. Those are number 2 plastic.
Okay.
There's about 12,000 milk jugs in one bale, which is a lot of milk, right?
A lot of jugs.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so your next question is probably, that's great, where does it all go?
Yeah.
So this is a map of our downstream processors that we send our finished bales to. So you can see here we have
Canada.
our 3 through 7 plastics are going over to Canada, but we're Michigan, so it's practically Michigan, right? Our aluminum cans can either stay right here in Grand Rapids, or we do have another outlet in Pennsylvania. Cardboard boxes can go to Indiana or Wampakoneta, Ohio. A couple other things, like our milk jugs go to Dundee. Our clear plastics go to Bowling Green.
Oh, okay.
So our recycling manager and our recycling site supervisors
Y'all pretty-
do visit these places to look for red flags. And those red flags are shipping containers or containers just to send it out. So they're sorting what they get or want that's valuable and then landfilling the rest of it. So they're making sure that they're going down there and looking for those red flags so that doesn't happen. All right. So like I said, 75% of what goes to the landfill could have been easily diverted. Now we know a little bit better and we're able to sort it out into each bin that's appropriate so that we can move from a linear economy of taking, making, disposing to making something, using it, recycling it, or repurposing it, so that we don't have to make something again, or we can make something from that old content and we don't have to harvest virgin material from the wild. Because this has all been leading up to this, instead of the landfill, what we're proposing with the remaining 250 acres that's south of the landfill is that instead of building another landfill or an extension of the landfill that exists right now, we're proposing a sustainable business park. So that business park would be in charge of taking trash in and sorting the trash that people don't participate in recycling or composting, because there's always going to be a portion of the population that just doesn't care about this stuff, right? And hopefully changing that so that we can have compost be sorted out, plastics that were destined for the landfill be sorted out, glass that was destined for the landfill to be sorted out, that steel doesn't get buried in the landfill, right? So that's in the works. We're hoping the first quarter of 2023 that the Board of Commissioners for the county approves the project and we can move forward and have this built so that everyone can have curbside compost or more access to recycling. So I wanted to end our presentation. I want to be respectful of your time because I know that we're coming right up to that, with a couple actions that you could do and kind of some places that you could start now that you know how much trash goes to the landfill and what each of our actions can have in terms of impact on making sure less trash goes to the landfill. So I have a few up here, but I thought now would be a really good time for any questions that you have about anything that I've covered or I haven't covered. Yes?
You said we could recycle junk mail, but now do we have to open it first? And what about that plastic window and all?
That's a good question. So she said, hey, you said that we could recycle junk mail. Does that mean the plastic little windows in there? Do we have to open it? The plastic windows are okay. Our paper mill has verified that with us. They have the technology to remove that. Kind of the same way that now they have the technology to remove metal staples and tape, right? If you end up taking those apart, that makes you a gold star recycler. So if you want to rip your plastic windows out, that's fine. Something I would encourage you to do, I don't know if anyone else has seen this, I've received junk mail that had like a little like digital like countdown or like a magnet on it. You want to remove that, right? And make sure that that's not included in your recycling. But otherwise you can just put it all in there in the recycling bin. Did I answer your second question? I feel like it was a two-parter. Yes.
Who can get a compost bin?
So for this facility, portion. Oh, and let me repeat that. Who can get a compost bin? You guys live within the city of Grand Rapids, technically, right? Mm-hmm. They do have yard waste bins, but that's not the same as a compost bin. But you also, in addition to having like the rollout carts for recycling, do you have dumpsters for recycling? Someone's saying yes. So a couple of people are saying yes. So some of you are saying no. So does it depend on where you live? I'm looking to you. You're like, I don't know. Okay.
Roll out cart.
If it's anything like covenant living, sometimes there's separations of facilities where folks that are able to live independently have their own rollout cart. Folks that aren't able to live independently are recycling through a big dumpster. So that's sometimes where some of the confusion comes from in facilities like this. You can have a commercial dumpster ordered for composting.
What shape
So-
is a dumpster? What is a dumpster?
A dumpster is like a 10-yard bin, like the kind that the big massive squares that you see for putting trash in, that you see maybe front-loading trucks with the forks lift up and empty into the bed.
Okay, sure.
But you can get a big dumpster like that just for compost or food waste, and maybe you have like little collection bins for inside your house or underneath your sink.
You lift the lid up and throw it in. It's like a paper gator.
Yeah, it's kind of like a paper gator deal, but it's just for food waste. So there's Organicycle, there's Spurt, there's so many different companies that offer that service, and I'm happy to, if that's something, if that's an action that you guys want to take, where you're encouraging your complex to offer this as a service, maybe that's something, an action that you can take from after this presentation, is to have compost at your facility. Careful, I'm rallying the troops here. Yes, sir.
Aluminum foil wraps.
Yep.
For candy bars or something.
Oh, so aluminum foil wrap, like wrappers on a candy bar. What do we think? Yes, it's recyclable? No. No. The reason for that, it's not aluminum foil. It's foil and plastic combined together. We just want foil. So that's like your traditional tin foil, aluminum foil that you're covering your leftovers in. You can ball that up, put it in your recycling bin. But wrappers from packaged foods like that are a no-go for your recycling bin. So, great question.
If it's pure foil, then it's recyclable.
If it's pure foil, it's recyclable, but I have not encountered a candy bar that's pure foil. Oh, I lied. Hershey's Kisses are strictly foil, but you would have to eat a lot of Hershey's Kisses in order for you to ball it up. But I'm not judging anybody here, so. If you make it big enough, or if you embed it into your bigger foil ball, right? You could just keep a growing foil ball on your microwave. Is that only me that does that? All right. Yes, sir.
What percentage of trash is incinerated?
What percentage of trash is incinerated? So it's approximately 25% of what Kent County generates goes to the waste to energy facility to be incinerated. It's around 225,000 tons, I believe. I don't have the exact number of tons off the top of my head, but it's about 25% of the waste generated all in Kent County.
What do you do with the ashes?
The ashes are put into a separate cell or section of the landfill that are just ashes. It's kind of cool if you drive past it, you can actually see some of the non-ferrous metals that weren't melted down. So my guess is that at some point in the future, when we're searching for more materials, because we only have a finite amount, we might return to the landfill to dig some of them out. Be a lot less work if we put everything in the right bin first, right? Yes.
What percentage of recycling
to
waste?
Okay, so for what percentage of recycling do we have in Kent County to waste? So only 25% of Kent County households participate in recycling. I know, this is why I'm here, is to make sure that more folks recycle.
Yes.
So we're only recycling 35,000 tons a year. Our capacity for the recycling center is 65,000 tons.
Wow.
So we have room for improvement, we'll say. Nowhere to go but up, hopefully. Yes.
Is there anywhere that you can bring styrofoam?
That's a great question. So I did mention that even though the recycling center can't take a material, that doesn't mean it's not recyclable, period, right? So styrofoam is something that doesn't like to play nice with other recyclables, which is why it can't go in the mixed recycling bin. But just like how there's a flexible plastic and plastic bag drop off, right, at area Meijer or Target or Lowe's, there are some styrofoam recycling drop offs. Trying to think of the nearest one. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there are several around this area. What I'll do is I will email JC that booked this with a couple of the resources that we talked about so she can pass that along to you. Does that sound fair? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I know we can recycle plastic milk cartons, but what about like coffee cream? It's not really plastic. It's like cardboard with, waxy.
The cartons?
Yeah.
Yep, they fall in the carton category.
Oh, okay.
You're give them rinse, put them in your recycling bin, cap on. I'm sorry, her question was, can you recycle coffee creamers, like the carton kind, the paper board or cardboard outside? Yes, they fall in the carton category, right?
Yeah.
So just keep your lids on and give them a rinse. Yes.
Okay, I know we're almost out of time, so I'll be real fast. So my coffee bags.
Yes.
As you can see, I go through a few of them. But they say don't recycle. Is that because they're multi-layer? They got,
Do you say coffee bags?
like you get a bag of, like, coffee.
The coffee grounds and coffee bean bags. I was thinking filters for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's because they're made out of too many materials. So they have kind of like the foil, plasticky material like you find in candy bars. And then they've got the zip tie or like the plastic clasp that has like the little metal twist on it to keep it fresh. So you've got metal, you've got plastic, you've got some foil mixed in there. They're also a flexible plastic, right? If we think about it, they're gonna wrap around some of the equipment. So that's a no-go. Unfortunately, coffee is an alternative. The coffee packaging is not an alternative that I found really well because I like the bagged coffee and not so much the canister, like the metal canister or the plastic tub coffee. Right? Call me a snob, but that's just not something I've been able to make the switch on
I am a
yet.
snob too, but when I see pre-cycle, if I was really serious, I would go for the cans or the.
Absolutely, that's a good switch that you could make. You're right. Yep. And the same kind of goes for like the plastic stirrers. I don't know if you've used those in your coffee, but you could refuse those, right? You could use a cinnamon stick, right? Make your coffee a little spicy. Or you could just reuse a spoon, right?
Yeah.
So good switches, yes.
What about cat food bags?
Cat food bags, what do we think? Yes, recyclable? No, recyclable. Not recyclable.
No, probably no.
Not recyclable because it's flexible, right?
Yeah.
But what could we do with it instead? Any ideas of how we could repurpose that? Use it as your trash bag. Right? You could put your trash in there.
Sure.
Oh.
You could put your trash in there and then you don't have to, we're literally buying trash bags, right? To only put in the ground. That's their only purpose. But if we have something that's destined to go to the landfill because there's not a recycling or a compost option, best thing that we could do is reuse it again as a trash bag to go to the landfill. Any other questions? Yes?
Aluminum foil that's been in the oven. Okay, so you got a little burnt places from cheese or something like that. And in order to get that really washed clean, you're gonna have to use soap and hot water. So how much of the little burnt stuff can you tolerate on aluminum foil?
None. Yeah, right.
So her question was, I have aluminum foil, I might use it in my oven, and maybe there's a couple burnt edges and corners from cheese, anything else that you're grilling in there. How much of that burnt part can you tolerate? So the answer is easy on this one. Because smelting happens at such high temperatures, it's in the 2,500 Fahrenheit degree range, if not higher. All of those contaminants, the burnt parts are from residue, right? From your cheese or your meat juice or anything else that's on there, that's going to incinerate off. I know it's like stubborn right now, but that will incinerate off once it goes through the smelting process, that hot melting down process. So don't sweat it too much, get it as clean as you can, but if you're like, seriously, I'm about ready to have my arm fall off from scrubbing, save your arm, put it in the recycling bin.
And how small pieces of foil are not acceptable?
I'm sorry, can you
How
repeat?
small a piece of foil is not acceptable?
Oh, how small of a piece of foil is not acceptable? You want to ball up your foil until it's about fist or baseball size in order for us to be able to notice it. Remember, it's not machine picked out, it's hand picked out. So you really have to make it noticeable for the human worker through all the rest of the stuff. So baseball size minimum.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yep, baseball size minimum. So if you're eating those Hershey's Kisses, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while, right? Yes.
And you emphasize no plastic, but I find in our recycle bins all the time, recycle stuff tied in a plastic bag.
Mm-hmm.
And often I untie it and dump it out, but you get sick of that too.
We get sick of it too
Yeah.
at the recycling center, but I appreciate you doing that. I know that sometimes when you're looking in your recycling bin and you see a lot of people doing it wrong, maybe this is a really good opportunity to have people know better and then do better, right? Until we know we're going to do things wrong or incorrect, right? So as much as it bothers me sometimes when I see, I don't know, CDs come through the line, or taxidermy come through the line, or ironing boards come through the line, or old kitty litter tubs come through the line. I have to recognize some folks just don't know better because they've never been taught why this is a problem, right? So maybe, I don't know what your guys' plans are, if there's a green team or a sustainability team or anything like that here, but maybe that's a project that you guys could take on. Maybe in addition to getting compost here, you could volunteer. Not that anyone wants to spend their day out hovering around a recycling bin, but honestly, I mean, I do, but this might be a good opportunity to meet the people that are doing some of those mistakes and just explain why. You're not coming after them to scold them. You're just saying, hey, this is a service for everybody. In order to keep it a service for everybody, we need not to abuse it. And here are some things that you need to know. And if they're saying, well, how do you know? You can say, the trash lady told me. And then you can send them my way if they don't believe you, okay? All right?
When you live in a building with 170 people, it's kind of hard to know who's
I know.
dumping the peanut butter jars without being cleaned.
Yep. That's why you have a dog, so that you can lick those peanut butter jars clean.
Do you have maybe sheets or posters that you could put by a recycle, like for her to have a poster there, what you could put in and not right above the thing so people can read it?
Yes, so we have some recycling guides. I will link those in the email to JC so that she has them to print off for everybody. I think that's a wonderful idea to hang posters above those recycling and trash bins so then folks are really aware of what they can and can't throw away. And maybe you make like a motto above it saying, when in doubt, find it out. Still in doubt, throw it out.
But those are in our trash rooms.
Yeah.
Okay, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Well, if someone won't read it because they think that they understand what it means, sometimes it just takes a little bit of coaching. in order to make sure that people are hearing from someone that actually cares. Because my guess is if they're recycling, they're doing it because they care, right? They're not doing it because they want to get it wrong or they want to contaminate it.
Right.
They think they're doing the right thing, I think oftentimes when people say, oh, I'll just put a styrofoam cup in my recycling, they'll figure out where to put it. We don't have that kind of time or energy when things are moving that fast on the sort line. So but it's a common misconception that a lot of people have. So that we don't have the time to do that. So I'll follow up with a few of the resources that you mentioned. We just came out with our 2022 holiday recycling guide, because I know that there's a lot of things that happen during the holidays. Our waste goes up by 25% during the holidays, so we're making more of it. So kind of what you can and you can't throw away, but holiday edition, okay?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me out here. I had a really great